Hello and welcome. My name is Carsten Lützen. I'm an agile coach and a facilitator, and today I will talk about a retrospective format that I use when we are working with communication inside a team. That's often where I see we have issues or room for improvement or whatever we call it. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing and sharing and leaving a comment. That would be super awesome. And if you have ideas for videos, again, please share, or techniques or tools, please send me a message or leave a comment. That would be super awesome. So back to this communication retro. I have on several occasions been part of teams where we struggled a bit with it. How is it that we're communicating, and how is it that we are talking to each other? And I like to make observations during the sprint or the iteration or whatever we call it, and then bring that into the retrospective format that we then are going to look at. So when I'm working with communication and trying to improve that, I like, if we are in the same room, to do something called the chair game. And I'll just go over it quickly. I have made a specific video on this that I will link to. So the chair game, we divide the group into 3 groups, and these 3 groups have their own mission or their own goal, and then we ask them to meet or make this goal happen, and that is how to organize the chairs. So one group has to put the chairs upside down, group has to put all chairs in pairs, and one has to put all the chairs in a circle. And then we ask people to do this, and this is of course not a mutually exclusive mission, so all of them can be done together, but they will feel that they work against each other, and it's not really working. So it's a great debrief then to talk about, okay, so why does this feel super annoying? What can we do to make it feel less annoying next time? And that is maybe to be more deliberate about how we communicate. And I find the chair game to be a quite good exercise for that. Then I hope that you have already had a retrospective, so we have some follow-up to do. And what I like to do when we are talking about follow-up is to ask each other, is this still relevant? Is this something that we still see? And if that's the case, check, let's keep it. Otherwise, let's move on and use our effort on something new. So for the follow-up, I have assigned a driver in the previous iteration, and this driver's responsibility is now to debrief what have happened. So just share an update, and then we talk about, is this still relevant? Is this still something that we need to focus on, or is this something that we can just close right away? And if it is something that we can close, we're done, check. If not, we will carry it into the retrospective part of this. Sometimes we also do voting if it's not clear if it should stay or not. And it varies a bit how much effort has gone into it. Then, this one was very focused on communication. This one is more making sure that we actually put effort into solving things from the retrospective. Then the next exercise. Here, I'm putting a meta layer on top of what we would normally do. So we could do the retro wheel or whatnot, but what we're going to do, and there's a pretty high chance that I will spell this wrong, we're going to look into our neighbors, and I will tell what that means in a second. So if we're dealing with communication problems in our team, then we probably have something with how is it that we're communicating. And we can go around that in different ways. So if we're using the retro wheel or starfish, where we normally do our post-its, our sticky notes, I would use the same one as we had from the previous retrospective. So if you in the previous retrospective used the retro wheel with the start, stop, more or less, continue, and then appreciative feedback, then keep that. Or if you use the loved, learned, and long for 3 or 4L, depending on your favor or whatnot, or preference, doesn't matter. The important thing is this neighbor. So you're only allowed, or rather, you need to write sticky notes on behalf of your neighbor to either one specific side, right? So you can say that you go clockwise, right? So I need to write sticky notes for the person sitting here. And that forces us to look into what is it that we are saying throughout the sprint. So what is it that we are communicating? And then when we are doing that, so John next to me thinks that we should do more testing. John thinks that we should. So really think, what is it that John thinks? What is it that John have expressed during the iteration of the sprint that he or she would like to change, or he or she think we should look into? So when we're communicating, or when we're doing that, it's super important afterwards that when we present the sticky notes, that we remember that this is a best guess, right? And John might have something that is new, or where he or she maybe feels a bit misunderstood. And there are 2 ways we can take this. One way is to talk about, but this is the perception of another person, right? So maybe we will need to look into what is it that we're sharing with the group, with the team. And another is also to have like I'll just call it a step 3, where we share our own, what is it that we would like to bring to the board that was not on the board already. So if we have that thing that, Carsten really missed this and I would really love for us to talk about this, then we have a way to get that onto the board. And this neighbor thing is can be quite interesting, and for you as a facilitator, look at how it changes the dynamic in the room. Sometimes you might get some things onto the board that is new, because people might have had a conversation or something that they bring up into this. So it can unlock different things, again, because we're changing perspective. Then 4th one is the classic vote. So here, right, we vote. What is it that we're going to focus on? We take the one with the highest number of votes, and then we go into figuring out what is it then that we should do as our focus points. And as I shared in previous ones, I really like to not dive into specific concrete actions. I would much rather dive into signs of improvement. So if John said that he would really like us to get more testing, then how would we see that more testing have happened? How would our users experience? How would the managers, the other teams experience it? And then as a closer, again, to tie a knot into this, I would again pick an exercise that focus on how is it that we're communicating in the team. And here I would do this letter or postcard exercise. So spend 5-ish minutes and have people writing a postcard to the person that they were responsible for mimicking in the retrospective. So in my example, right, I should write a postcard to John, and that should be an encouraging postcard from John to John. What is it that John should be proud of, and what is it that John should really be proud of that he or she did in the last exercise or in the last sprint. And then as the facilitator, I will collect these. Postcards and then hand them out during the iteration. So if I see that John is struggling, then I will hand out this positively phrased postcard to John. Or if I see myself struggling, then I will hand out the card to myself. And in this way, we have tried to put emphasis on positive communication, showed the value of being transparent with it, what is it that we're trying to achieve. We have followed up to show that retrospectives matters. We've tried to illustrate also what is it that is being said out loud and what is being perceived by others, and then trying to put a positive spin on it with the postcards. So yeah, that's one way of doing a communication themed retro. And I'm hoping that this have added some kind of ideas into your head, and if that's the case, please share with the rest of us. That would be super awesome. Yeah, and if you have comments, questions, ideas, or feedback to these videos, please leave a message or send me a comment. That would be awesome. Yeah, have a super awesome day.